A roller coaster for Halo this week, Mr. Black, and not a good one. First of all, this all happened in the last couple of weeks since the last podcast. First of all, it was rumored up front that 343 Industries, this was after following the layoffs that we discussed actually in the previous podcast that you and I were together for. Following the layoffs at 343, the rumors started circulating that they were going to be, as a developer, relegated to a supervisor role over the franchise. And so instead of being the direct developer for the franchise, they were going to be pretty much just, we're here to say that we're involved and maybe give some input as Microsoft brings in other people to, make Halo games at this point. So that was the rumor. And that stuck around for a day or so, and then 343 put out an official statement that said, hey guys, we're still totally making Halo games, but it was worded in a way that still left room for doubt. Like, lots of press X to doubts on that statement, because it wasn't so definitive sounding that it didn't sound, for example, that 343 Industries were going to continue to be the only people developing the mainline Halo games. It just sounded like we are going to continue making Halo. And then that broad stroke, whatever the fuck that means, whether that means we're upkeeping Infinite or something else and that's it, or if we're, if we are doing some small, if we're co-authoring Halo games now, there's a lot of X to doubts based on how they worded that shit. But following that, we ended up discovering that allegedly Halo, and this is more recent, just in the last few days, that Halo is going to be reduced to a smaller, more intimate project profile. So instead of something like, Microsoft spending $500 million on a 10-year Halo Infinite project, which was, I think we can all agree, a choice. Instead of doing that, the current rumor mill is that it's going to be smaller projects, single player stuff, mostly, some more intimate kind of lesser budget size situations. But also, and the thing that makes more sense to me out of these two rumors, that they are thinking about moving Halo back over to, or not back to, but over to the Unreal Engine, instead of using 343's proprietary Slipstream, I think was the name, or Slipspace or whatever, Slip something, engine that they wrote for Halo Infinite, which gave them some issues when they were developing Infinite. As much as it allowed them to do some things that were custom, it gave them a fair struggle in a number of instances. And so the idea being, I suppose, that if you put it on Unreal Engine 5, that they'd be able to circumvent some of that. Or, more specifically, I think that it lends credence, if they did do that, to having other developers come in to make Halo games or Halo content where they are well-versed in Unreal Engine and not well-versed in the proprietary Halo engine. So, that's the current situation with Halo. As usual, completely fucking up in the air, lots of people confused, nobody really knows what's going on, no certainty with the franchise, and just still kind of treading water. My question would be to you, Mr. Black. Do you think that at this juncture, 343 should continue on with just different leadership from what they've had, which they kind of have now because of a lot of the swap outs from people in the last few weeks, in a couple months? Or do you think that this rumored possibly bring in another developer or two and move the franchise to the Unreal 5 engine to help them start development sooner and maybe, be less troublesome? Do you think that's the wiser choice? Do you think that they should leave it with 343 or kind of start to move it into other directions? And if that's the case, do you think that Halo is still a flagship moving forward, or do you think that positions it more as just another above average franchise on the console?
I mean, I don't really care. I'll put that out there. So
I know that much. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are for other people. Yeah.
If you got a gun to my head and be like, make a choice, I would say leave it with 3-4-3. Let him crash and burn with it. I don't think changing the engine is going to change what we think about the game, and how they handle the game. Seems like a lot of the stuff that they're doing is probably the decision makers cutting corners, doing things. Because I don't think it's the actual people that are working on the games that are developing the games.
No, it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault. So it seems like it's management direction. I don't know. So I would just say leave it the way it is. Plus, it's kind of iconic that 3-4-3 is Halo, or that Halo is 3-4-3. And I think if you change the studio, I think you lose even more credibility from the game. And then also, if the next iteration is not good, or whatever they do, and it's not under 3-4-3, you have quite literally, you're done. Like, it's like 3-4-3 gave up on it. We gave it to somebody else. They can't do shit with it. It's over. So I think you just leave it where it's at. Change the leadership role, and just realize that now that it is not a flagship property anymore. It is not loved the way it used to. But it's still part of the Xbox family. And just like, a family member that you can't really stand, they're still invited to the cookout. And,
the estranged uncle.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think Halo's probably successful enough that like it garners them to not just end it. But we're a long ways away from where it used to be, and it will never get there again, ever, under any banner. So the best they can do now is just salvage, make something playable, try not to embarrass themselves. And if the next game or games start to go in the right direction, you never know. It could go back to its former glory. If they release it with the next console or whatever, they might be able to salvage out like the next big Halo game. But I just think it's over.
Yeah, I'm in a pretty similar boat. I think that I think most people would agree, in what we're saying, where clearly it's not an individual developer, issue here. It's not the people actually, that are being told what to do to go do the thing. It's not their fault. It's clearly management's direction of the franchise under 343 for the last, 10 years that has been suspect. They have swapped out a number of these people, but for me, I don't want any of them. Like, I don't really like when I'm saying this, I'm similar to Jeff. I don't know if I care so much about Halo that it matters to me, but if I'm the one making decisions, this is what I would be doing. The zero people that have had any major role in decision making at 343 for the direction of these games, I don't think they can continue. It's not like they had the job for 2 years and they haven't, they produced a game and it just wasn't all that hot, and now we're just immediately, ripping them out of there and be like, oh shit, one shot, you're done. They've been around for a while. They've had a lot of time to find a way to bring Halo back to true, killer app console seller status. And it's just not been that. It's not been bad, like Jeff was saying. Halo is not in such dire straits that you abandon it entirely. It's still selling 5, 7, 10, whatever million copies of their games at a time. But 5, 7, 10 million copies is not what it used to be. There's a lot more people playing games now. 10 million copies of a game in 2002 is a much different metric than 10 million copies of a game in 2023. That's a totally different especially in the shooter space. I mean, it is wildly different. So, it's not like it's dead, but it's also not what it should be. And what I think Phil Spencer, in his mind, as he said multiple times, Halo is Xbox, Xbox is Halo. If we fail Halo, we fail Xbox. And I think if you asked him, and he wasn't in a position of like where he has to watch what he says publicly, I think he would admit that they fucked up bad. Not just not just say like, soft candy coat it, it's this and this and that and whatever, and it happens and whatever. I think he'd just say they fucked it up. Because I don't know how else you look at it otherwise. So I would get rid of all the people that had any decision making at all at the high level at 343, and many of them are already gone, but all of them need to be gone. And you need to start sourcing and finding people that have a better mentality as to an understanding of what Halo actually is. Because I think and we've talked about this before, when Infinite first launched, enormous buzz. People that hadn't played Halo in years, loving it. Everything. So it's there. It's possible. Like, it's possible. But then after launch, the post-launch was dog shit. And in a world where people have, the patience for a game to be bad for like a maximum of like a month and a half, 2 months, which is nothing in terms of like game development time, you can't fumble the bag when you get that like they had it. And so it's possible, but now we got to find somebody that can do it and hold on to it. And obviously who's there right now, or not right now because it's changed a bit, but who has been there and may still continue to be there has not been it. So I'd get rid of all that. The developers have done a great job. When you look at the game and play the game, it feels like fucking Halo. And that's one thing with Unreal Engine 5 that I'd be most interested in, is that pretty much any graphics engine, they all have their own, like you can look at a game and tell usually that it's an Unreal game. It has a certain look. And so it will change the look a little bit of what Halo looks like, but I think they'd still be able to make it look very much like Halo. The thing that I'd be interested in is the physics, because physics is what makes Halo feel like Halo. It's the weight of the character and the movement and whatnot. And not all game engines can be, one for one made to feel similar. And so that would be the interesting thing for me to see, is what would that end up looking like. We'll have to wait and see how much of this ends up becoming reality. I think most of this sounds plausible. Most of the rumor mill stuff that's come up in the last while, especially some of this is coming from Jason Schreier, which normally does not miss very hard because he has very good sources. We'll wait and see just to what degree this happens, but I think the most damaging thing about this whole topic, and it has been the case for a while, but now it's properly solidified, Halo may very well no longer be able to be seen as a flagship Xbox title. And that's fucking huge. And it's bad, and will lead us into another topic that I've got towards another part of the podcast here, but nevertheless, we'll leave Halo in the ground for now and maybe resurrect it later